So thanks everyone for being here. I'm Representative Ron Creasher, the co-chair for Education Finance. So on February 24th, we made a commitment right out of the gate that we would work with school safety for all kids across the schools. We've kept that. That's been our primary goal. And now with the last gavel that we'll have, we'll be ending on school safety. We'll be ending with Representative Lawrence's bill. And this is really about helping the schools with the tools and trying to protect all the kids. This is the best common sense solution that we can put forward. We've invited our colleagues from the other side to join us on that. I've heard bills from both sides. We're looking for the right ideas and good ideas. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Representative Lawrence and his bill.
Thank you, Chair Creasha. My name is Brian Lawrence. I represent House District 27B, and honored to speak before you today and talk about the bill that we have presented. House File 3493. This works to create a safe educational learning environment for all students. And I'm going to repeat that part of it, all students in the state of Minnesota. A couple of key points to this proposal. This bill provides options for protecting every student in every school, public, non-public, and tribal. It includes bipartisan and common sense solutions that are practical as well as realistic. The options of this bill are multi-layered and flexible to meet the local needs of our districts. Some of the key provisions of this bill include more school safety funding for our public, non-public, and tribal schools, more funding for student mental health in the schools, local options for anonymous threat reporting, as well as safe school safety plans. Also, student discipline reform, which helps protect teachers, staff, as well as the students. House File 3493 is a bill that all of us can support to make schools safer for all kids in the state of Minnesota. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Chair Bennett.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Peggy Bennett. I represent House District 23A, and I'm the co-chair of the Education Policy Committee. And I'd like to just talk to you today on the perspective from education policy. So today's proposal includes very important provisions, and you see them there and heard them from Representative Lawrence. One of them, an option for schools to have an anonymous threat reporting system, and that empowers schools and empowers their own students to become part of school safety. It's an important component to school safety. And it's one where we have bipartisan agreement, which I love. The ideas that we heard in education, finance, and policy were not just Republican or Democrat ideas. We listened to all ideas. Student safety was a priority while recognizing that solutions need to be realistic and they need to be practical. So Chair Creasha and I, in education finance and education policy, have listened to different ideas. We've welcomed a number of proposals with one simple goal: protecting all students in our schools. And I want to say in particular that we have found areas where we have common ground, and that's important in the legislature. It's kind of a rarity right now, and we need to act on the things where we can find common ground, and these common sense proposals do just that. So I look forward to working with my colleagues and getting these passed. And I would like now to introduce Representative Ben Bakeberg. Where's Ben? There he is. And I'll let him go for it.
Thank you, Chair Bennett, Chair Creasha, Representative Lawrence. My name is Ben Bakeberg. I have the privilege to represent the communities of Prior Lake, Jordan, Shakopee, and the surrounding townships. And when I'm not here, I'm a middle school principal. So not only has school safety been a priority here at the legislature the entire time, frankly, that I've been here. When Chair Creasha held his first gavel, that was the first thing that we heard. It's also a priority when I'm back at school, and I am making sure and doing the best job that I can do to make sure that kids are safe on a day-to-day basis. So there is no one solution that is going to make sure that our schools are safe across Minnesota. So anyone that tells you that there's a one-stop fix that is going to address every need, they're lying to you. There is not a one-stop solution, but we need to have a multi-layered approach that includes both fiscal realities and policy provisions that are woven together to meet the local needs, that work in unison with the school safety plan that schools across the state already have in place. This bill is not a one-size solution. And to be very blunt, schools are sick of one-size-fits-all solutions that the Democrats have shoved on them over the last 3 years. That has to change. We have to provide funding, flexibility, and local control, and that is what this House file does. It empowers our local school boards, our local administrators, our local teachers, and the community and the kids to be an active part of making sure their environment is safe. One of the pieces, the anonymous threat reporting piece, this is so key because kids know, kids are aware of what is happening, and over and over and over, when there's a tragedy and the deep dive is done, there are flags that could have been addressed. So having kids report things is key, but it has to be anonymous because if you go to schools and you talk to kids, you're gonna hear a term that kids will say. They say, snitches get stitches. So they are afraid to report. And we need to change that mindset, but this is a way that we can empower kids to keep their classrooms safe. Like we've talked about, whether it's a Republican idea, a Democrat idea, if it's a good idea, we are going to do everything in our power to protect kids and moving towards a layered approach to keep our schools across the state safe, because the needs of Prior Lake are different than the needs of Pequot Lakes. So with that, we'll open it up for questions.
The governor and Democrats have said they're open to a lot of these ideas, but they say they need action on guns. Are there any gun restrictions you would consider supporting as a part of a negotiation for this?
So we're the Education Committee. Those bills have been heard. We have to go back to a multi-layered approach, and that's what we're going to continue to do, focus on the needs that we can control within the Education Finance Committee. Turn over to Chair Creasy.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the question. So just recently I read in one of the news reports that Leader Niska and Leader Long said, hey, if we carve out the things we can't agree to, there's a list of things we can. So to your point, there's a list of things we can get to. Let's close what's on the table.
Is there any scenario, though, to include guns in
your proposals?
Well, what we have on the table is a list of successful bills. Let's close those first. And as I see it, the Senate has hearings, and so does the other side. They can bring whatever proposals they want. I'm trying to get to what we can get to agreement first, and this is what we have agreement on.
Are you hoping to get an agreement?
From both parties then on these proposals right here?
I always hope people come into my great ideas.
Are there any gun restrictions? This is a big problem, and you're really only talking about one side of it here.
I disagree with that. We're talking about allowing schools to have tools. You've heard from Representative Lawrence, Representative Bakeberg. They're looking for solutions. So why would we put obstacles up to success that's in front of us? Why do we keep finding out ideas around here that make us more political versus more successful?
Have you had any discussions with the governor about any of these things? Is he gonna demand something on guns if you're gonna get these things, or any talks at all?
The governor hasn't weighed in yet on this. What he said is he wants to cut another $50 million in schools, and we're trying to bring solutions forward. This package would give more success to schools. So I would hope the governor would want to join in this and not just cut special ed funding. I think this is a great way to go forward.
Public dollars for private schools was a sticking point in committee earlier. Why support what could be a wealthy private school when there are underfunded public schools out there in Minnesota right now?
Why are we so bent on discriminating against schools and kids? We had, I don't want to bring it up, but we had an incident at a school that has prompted all these discussions. We had a governor who couldn't even follow through on his promise of a special session. We came out of the gate saying we will lead on school safety. Representative Lawrence has done that. Representative Bakeberg, Representative Mueller, and Representative Bennett have all been part of this. What I don't understand is, and I know you're just asking questions, but everybody seems to come up with ways not to be successful. And to your point, why would we leave, somebody who attends a non-public, whether that's a tribal or a private school, why are they any different than somebody that's in a public school? That doesn't seem to make sense to me.
These proposals seem to be expanding to non-public schools and tribal schools, programs that once were only available to public schools. In terms of negotiating with the DFL, would you be willing to do a package like this if that might only be available to public schools, if the DFL comes back at you in committee today and says, look, we're not going to do this funding for non-public schools, or is that something?
No, we're not gonna put any package out that leaves kids out. I don't care what school you attend, whether it's a charter, whether it's a non-public, a private, or a public, you are entitled to going to a safe learning environment. And there's no reason to draw circles around who we're gonna favor and who we're not gonna favor.
So you wouldn't agree to some of these proposals if they just pertain to public schools?
I won't.
Can you talk about why you're encouraging school districts to have their individual threat reporting systems rather than requiring it, or looking to expand more knowledge about the statewide one, why you decided to craft it this way?
Sure, if you want. Yeah, I'll let Chair Bennett come in, and Representative Baker can also speak to when we put mandates on schools.
Yeah, and that's a good question, and that came up in education policy. And our mindset here is if something's a good idea, schools are going to opt into it. The Sandy Hook Promise has already indicated that they have grants for schools. They are ready to pay for these things. We want schools to be able to have the option to opt into a good thing. They're smart enough. They can figure this out. They can see what good things are. There's no need to mandate that. Our schools are so over-mandated right now. You know, the 65-plus mandates you hear about, they're real. Schools are sinking because of those. We don't need to mandate anymore because they will opt into good ideas.
Could someone just explain the funding mechanism? I read in the bill that it's cutting another 50 million from the Northern Lights, which I know was cut last year, but just explain how that works into what you're proposing.
Yeah, I'll just briefly on that. We have to be able to offset revenue right now and expenses. We don't have target from Ways and Means, so we're looking for those revenue neutrals. Originally, that was some funding that we looked at moving over here, so that's one option. There could be others down the road.
Assuming that this might end up coming to needing to negotiate a compromise with the DFL on a school safety package like this one, what are the non-negotiables for your caucus? What are the things that absolutely have to be in that final school safety bill?
You know, that's a tough question because I don't know. I don't know what lists they're going to bring. So I'm certainly not going to put ourselves in a position where we can't negotiate on anything. So I don't have an answer to that because frankly, the reason I don't have an answer to that is they haven't brought anything to the table. We're the only ones coming to the table with a school safety package.
There's a little over a month left in the session. Are you okay with the pace, with how things are going on this issue and others?
Tom, if you're paying attention, I made a motion for sine die 3 weeks ago. So I think we're moving a little slow for my pace. But we're about where we are, right? This is the time when people are going to start looking at May, the weather's changing, and they're like, how long do we want to be here? So, you know, it's a funny place when you start looking at paces because things can suddenly happen over a weekend where people decide, okay, we got to get to move. Committee deadlines are Friday, and we have a little bit of an interesting situation with not having targets. So I don't know that I could compare it to any other session in the 14 years I've done because they've all been different. We've all thought we were going to get out at the end of April, and we all thought we were going to be home for the fishing opener, and that has never happened. So,
Seriously, are you taking these committee budget deadlines on Friday?
I mean, they're the deadlines. We should follow the deadlines. There are other means to do move bills with concurrences and rules waivers and all that, but these are committee deadlines, and that's why we're doing it today on the week of committee deadlines.
And the appropriations here, is the appropriation around $98 million total, and then you subtract the 50 million from Northern Lights, or is the appropriation $98 million?
The last numbers I have is about 52 million a year. So I haven't really gotten, I mean, we still have a lot of moving pieces to come together. Yeah. Other questions for us?
This poor Northern Lights train, I've seen so many bills where people are trying to grab that money.
If you've been around here for a while, you know, there are lots of pockets of money. There's the Ford money, there's money, so you just gotta be creative on where you find things. There's always a rock to overturn.
So then would this money be ongoing, or would you have to find a new source going into the future?
That would be for future legislatures to decide. Well, we can do what we can do, right? Did I mention I tried to go sine die? Other questions for the team, for the bill author?
you feel compelled to at least get something done for the Annunciation school parents who, whether it be on guns or school safety, they want something to be done?
Tom, you're absolutely right. I think the reason I did the motion on Sunny Dye is we let people down all the time here. And I don't think it's just a compelling reason to get this done. I think it's a has to get it done. We need to show them that we're willing to listen. We need to put something forward. I think if we were to finally close out the session in May and my head were to hit the pillow that night and we didn't get a school safety package done, that would be a great sense of sadness.
Does that extend to gun legislation too, or just the school safety?
I'll leave it at that.
I'd like to make one comment. You know, I hear this like, we should give this for that and so on. These are areas where we find agreement. We should be acting, that's what people want us to do in the legislature, act on things where we find agreement, instead of digging in our heels on both sides and saying, we're not gonna do this until you do that. How about we find the areas where we can agree? These are areas where we can agree. Yes, there's little tweaks here or there we can do. We can do this. We need to do it for our kids, for our communities. And it's an area where we find agreement. The public wants to get that done, where we find agreement. So that's where we stand. We've found areas where we can work together bipartisanly. It happened in education policy, the anonymous threat reporting system. A Democrat bill was ready to come for a bipartisan vote. Unfortunately, there's a whole story behind that. Kind of got killed for who knows why. But it's an area where we agree upon. So let's do it. Let's get it done. That's what the public wants.
Mike Moisky told one of our reporters a couple of weeks ago that yes, a lot of these provisions are great, but he still thinks you gotta do something about guns. I mean, he is one of the Annunciation parents, so what do you tell him?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go. I've had ongoing conversations with many of the Annunciation families, and they have their perspective. Right now, this is what we can agree on. So we are focusing on solutions that we can get done for Minnesota. That's what we're focusing on. For kids, we have work to do. This package will keep kids safer in school. We can pass this package today if we have a Democrat that is willing to side with us. I'm extremely frustrated that how the Annunciation families have been treated through this process. They were here and testified, and God bless them for sharing their story. But not one single Democrat will say that they should get non-public pupil aid as well, or that they should get Safe Schools funding like they do for non-public pupil aid. I completely reject the premise that we shouldn't be providing funding. We should provide funding to our non-public schools to keep them safe, because every single kid deserves to be safe in Minnesota.
Education parents requested getting non-public aid.
So I'm not gonna share the conversations because I'm not going to engage in political theater about my conversations with the Annunciation families. But what I've consistently heard from non-public schools across the state is they should feel safe. Their kids should feel safe in school. That's what I've consistently heard. And that's what we will continue to advocate for. Because when a kid goes to school, whether they go to St. John's Catholic School in Jordan, St. Mike's in Prior Lake, or Sachs in Shakopee, or the school that I'm a principal of, or any school across the state, the kids should feel safe being there. And we should provide the aid to make sure that kids feel safe in a way that that school can address the needs.
What the Annunciation parents have been saying, though, is expressing their frustration with all of you for not even considering these gun control measures that they're talking about. Their testimony, I'm sure you've seen it and heard it, it's gut-wrenching. And they're asking you for that. That's what they want.
Yep, and what we have right now is an education package that can pass to keep all kids safe, period.
Thanks, guys. Any more questions?